Hi, I'm your classmate, Jessica Collier, and this video is the latest in our series of videos on motivation theories. This time we're talking about interest. We'll discuss what interest is, the types of interest, how we can foster interest, and the implications we can draw for instructional design. We will finish the video with an artifact analysis through the lens of interest. We talk about our interests all the time, like when we meet new people or get a new job. But what is interest? Thankfully, a lot of people have already thought about that, and Heidi took those thoughts and developed a definition for us. A unique motivational variable, as well as psychological state, that occurs during interactions between persons and their objects of interest, and is characterized by increased attention, concentration, and affect. Using the word in the definition is usually something I would try to avoid, but I'm not saying I could do any better. And fortunately, I don't have to, because it's also been referred to as a relatively enduring predisposition to re-engage with particular content, such as objects, events, and ideas. Heidi and Renninger tell us that interest can be distinguished from other motivational variables in three ways. Interest includes both affective and cognitive components as separate but interacting systems. Both the affective and cognitive components of interest have biological roots. And interest is the outcome of an interaction between a person and a particular content. The potential for interest is in the person, but the content and the environment define the direction of interest and contribute to its development. So things like other individuals, the organization of the environment, and a person's own efforts like self-regulation can support interest development. There are two types of interest that educational research has focused on, situational and individual. As Heidi tells us, situational interest is environmentally triggered and involves an affective reaction and focused attention. There are two phases of situational interest, one where the interest is triggered and the next where it is further maintained. Individual interest develops over time and is a predisposition to attend to objects, events, ideas, etc., and to re-engage with particular content. It's associated with positive feelings, increased value, and knowledge. And then there's a third type of interest. Topical, or as the authors say, topic interest is an anticipatory response triggered by the presentation of topics and themes. Ainley, Heidi, and other colleagues found that situational and individual factors can contribute to topic interest. The example given in the article was that if students are given a topic, like black holes and quasars, for example, those with an individual interest in astronomy may find it interesting. As someone interested in astronomy, I totally get that. They go on to say that students without individual interest may also find that topic interesting because of situational interest factors, like novelty or danger, which are conveyed by the title. That also makes sense. By the time I got to college, I had no interest in math, but there was a class about math in everyday situations, like playing chess, so it provided just enough topical interest to get me into it. So we have two traditional types of interest, situational and individual, and a bonus type, topical, for a total of 3. Now let's talk about fostering interest. Heidi and Renninger mentioned in the beginning of their article that many teachers lack understanding of their potential role in helping students develop interest. They often think that students either have or do not have interest. I'm glad I'm not a teacher because I feel like I may have been guilty of this line of thinking in the past. Anyway, when I talked about the definition, I mentioned that other individuals, the organization of the environment, and a person's own efforts like self-regulation can support interest development. We also have a 4-phase model of interest development proposed by Heidi and Renninger. In this model, the phases are sequential and distinct, and they represent a cumulative, progressive development. They say that without support, interest development can become dormant, regress, or disappear altogether. That makes sense. It's like when you and a friend or a partner learn a new hobby, but if the other person doesn't help foster the interest, you might just let it slip away. Okay, so here we go. The 4 phases of interest development. Phase 1, triggered situational interest. This is a psychological state of interest that results from short-term changes in affective and cognitive processing. It can be sparked by environmental or text features like surprising information, personal relevance or character identification, and intensity. An emerging individual interest is typically but not exclusively self-generated, but it does require some external support from peers, experts, etc. Phase 2, maintain situational interest. This refers to a state of interest that comes along after a triggered state, and it involves focused attention and persistence over an extended episode in time, and/or it reoccurs and persists. In this phase, situational interest is held and sustained through meaningfulness of tasks and/or personal involvement. It's typically, but not exclusively, externally supported, and things like project-based learning and cooperative group work can contribute to the maintenance of situational interest. Phase 3, emerging individual interest. This is a state of interest and the beginning phases of a relatively enduring predisposition to seek repeated re-engagement with particular classes of content over time. In this phase, we see positive feelings, stored knowledge, and stored value. We value the opportunity to re-engage tasks related to our emerging individual interests, and we will opt to do these tasks if we are given a choice. An emerging individual interest is typically but not exclusively self-generated. It does require some external support like models or support from peers and experts. And like the previous state, instructional conditions or learning environments can enable the development of an emerging individual interest. And lastly, phase 4, well-developed individual interest. This is the point at which we have a relatively enduring predisposition to re-engage with particular classes of content over time. This interest phase is characterized by positive feelings, more stored knowledge, and more stored value. It enables a person to sustain long-term constructive and creative endeavors and generates more types and deeper levels of strategies for work with tasks. It allows a student to consider both the context and the content of a task in the process of problem solution or passage comprehension, and it promotes self-regulation. Nice. A well-developed individual interest is usually self-generated, and it may benefit from external support, and like its predecessor, it can contribute to increased understanding. Learners with this well-developed individual interest will persevere to work or address a question even in the face of frustration. And again, instructional conditions or learning environment can facilitate the development and deepening of well-developed individual interests by providing opportunities that include interaction and challenge that leads to knowledge building. That was a lot. A quick recap. The first phase is triggered situational interest. It provides a basis for someone to form a connection to the content. Then a person is supported by the environment to continue to develop a basis for connecting to content and relating the info to other available info. They develop value for the content. Then third, they seek repeated engagement with the content, and they engage with or without external support. They're now posing curiosity questions, which leads to self-regulated activity, acquiring more info and increasing value. Then in the fourth phase, they continue to seek repeated opportunities for re-engagement. The re-engagement is informed by curiosity questions, self-regulation, valuing, and the ability to sustain creative thinking and maintain interest even when frustration is present. So why should we, as educators or instructional designers, care about interest? Well, research studies suggest that interest impacts attention, goal setting, and learning strategies. It can help predict student choices, for example, college students' choice of academic major, and interest combines with external factors to predict academic outcomes. We can help students sustain attention for tasks even when they are challenging, provide opportunities for students to ask curiosity questions, and select or create resources that promote problem solving and strategy generation. Learners also need to feel positive about content, and we can facilitate those positive feelings by offering choice in tasks, promoting a sense of autonomy, having innovative task organization, providing support for developing knowledge needed for successful task completion, and helping to build a sense of competence. And some practical tips. Use project-based learning strategies, promote peer collaboration, and let students choose which tasks to complete or how to complete them, kind of like we do with Universal Design for Learning. If we do as much as we can to help foster and maintain interest, student outcomes will hopefully be positively impacted. And just as a side note, when you give students choices and a chance to explore their interests and express themselves, they remember it and they appreciate it. I still remember my 8th grade math teacher who not only allowed but also encouraged me to be me. She kept the dodecahedron I painted with skulls in her classroom for years, even though that wasn't her style. Thanks, Mrs. Thompson. For this analysis, I'm going to use the same course that I used for our last analysis. This was an online course I was taking, and as a reminder, it was a course called Applying and Leading Assessment in Student Affairs. It's just what it sounds like. It's a course for assessment professionals working in higher education. And it aims to teach us assessment foundations, planning, coaching and consulting, using data to inform decisions, and other assessment-related topics. Likely, if you're taking this course, you're doing it because you have at least a slight interest in assessment, either because it's part of your job, because it's topically related to your job, or because you're crazy. Either way, let's think about whether or not the designers of the course did anything to foster interest. Overall, I would say yes. They promote peer collaboration by incorporating a message board prompt in every module. They even break these into groups so that people working at similar institution types, for example, 4-year public, 2-year public, etc., can relate with one another. Having these peer discussions and learning from peers in similar situations can help maintain our interest. They also create a spreadsheet for those who are interested in sharing their contact info and interests so that they could keep the conversations going after the course has closed. To fully complete the course and get the digital badge, 2 specific assignments and all quizzes must be completed. So there isn't a ton of choice, but there's still the option to just browse the course or to view only the content you're interested in or need help with. You can also choose to attend the 3 offered live sessions or not, and the message board posts are not mandatory for the badge. I think all of this is helpful because you won't have people lose interest in your course, at least for those who don't want to complete assignments. So people have the autonomy to put forth as much effort in the course as they want or need to. Although it may not be as easy as it would be in the classroom or in a course that wasn't a MOOC, the instructors provide support via message board and live session. They give detailed feedback on assignments, and they are positive and encouraging with that feedback, which helps build a sense of competence. That in turn helps maintain interest. The message boards and assignments provide opportunities for students to ask curiosity questions, and the instructors provide plenty of resources that promote problem solving and strategy generation. The assignments include scenarios that challenge the learner to use the resources, such as the provided case studies and rubrics, to solve the problems in the scenario. Overall, for a MOOC about assessment, I think the instructors did a pretty good job maintaining my interest, even when for a half second I didn't really want to complete the assignments because I perceived that they were challenging. To make it even more interesting, maybe they could incorporate more choice, such as submitting a voice or video response instead of writing, or maybe they could do something more collaborative than just the simple message board. If you've been wondering why I chose this weird anatomy theme for my presentation, it's simply that I found it interesting. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing everyone else's artifact analysis. See you next time.